Welcome to Diaspora Glitch Podcast, where home is not always a place, but a journey we are constantly learning to navigate. Today's episode is one of reflection, honesty, and depth. Because living in the diaspora is more than movement, is transformation, is about who we are becoming, and the spaces in between. On this episode today, we'll be talking about faith, identity, race, and belonging in the diaspora. I think many of us can relate to this quiet moment where we ask ourselves, where do I really belong? Today, I'm joined by someone whose journey beautifully sits at the intersection of faith, leadership, and lived experience. Eddie is originally from Nigeria and now based in the Netherlands with his family. He is a pastor, a project management professional, and an international banker, and a voice for meaningful change within the diaspora community. Through his work and his platform, he creates space for honest conversations around identity, growth, navigating life abroad. Eddie, it's truly a pleasure to have you join us today.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and joining and having these discussions as well.
Thank you very much, Eddie.
Yeah.
Let's begin where stories start,
Yeah.
at the roots. Growing up as a child, how did you imagine where you are today? So let's journey back to the past. Take us back to Nigeria. What part of upbringing still live with you today, Eddie?
Yes. Thank you. Good question. Well, I grew up in Benin City, Nigeria. I'm from Benin City, Nigeria, in a simple family of four, with my father and my mom. Just a regular family that always told us go to school, discipline, and all that. Interestingly, as I grew up, I was someone that one would say Mr. Nigeria. I always wear this Nigeria lapel on my suits, on my dresses as we navigated. I loved the country, wanted to be there, wanted things to progress in the country. I schooled there, my bachelor's degree, University of Benin. Up until 2014, I grew up in a simple faith-based Christian family in Nigeria as a firstborn of four. That I made that statement because it's important for my journey. As a firstborn of four boys, a lot of responsibility was on my neck. So I felt responsible somehow for the outcome of my younger brothers as well. So everybody was telling me, hey, the way you turn out is the way your brothers are going to turn out, those kinds of things. And you just grow up feeling that, okay, you are not living for yourself, you are living for a community, you are living for people are looking at you, and whatever you turn out to be is what everybody else will try to follow and pattern in their lives. So that's the background in which I grew up. A simple family in Nigeria, trying to get to school, develop yourself, and become successful in life.
Thank you very much, Eddie. You just said something very striking, with the phrase, as a firstborn, it's expected that you behave certain way. So let's
Yeah,
let's talk a bit about the burden of the firstborn in communities
yeah,
such as Nigeria, because I hear
yeah,
that a lot.
yeah.
Coming from Nigeria myself, I cannot relate to this kind of societal or culturally placed burden.
Yes.
Is it always the case that with the firstborn turn out well, the rest will turn out well? I mean, from your experience, how can you address
Yes,
this?
yes, because I mean, as a firstborn, a lot of your younger ones are actually looking up to you. Now, it's not life happens to people, right? So sometimes first children don't turn out the way, or the younger ones turn out differently. They don't follow the examples of the firstborns. But as a firstborn son or daughter, as the case may be, your parents pay attention to you. Remember, as from Africa as well, the first children are always that trophy children, right? Everybody
Yeah,
looks at them, and you are not just judging yourself, you are the kind of judgment point of your parents as well. So the way you are turning out is the way your parents are being perceived as parents, as adults as well. So
yeah,
yes, it's very correct that when you are first child and in that community where everybody wants everybody is looking at you, it affects your upbringing, your way of life, the way you think about things. Even when you grow up and maybe probably enter the higher institution, you always keep thinking, if my mom hears about this, if my dad hears about this, what will they do? If my younger ones see these things that I'm doing, how will they perceive me and how will they copy that example? So yes, that stereotype is not just empty. It's real. It's real that with our communities where every man for yourself, not like we have in the Western world today, where the government takes
yeah,
care of people, it doesn't matter who the parents are, just give it to the children and then
yeah,
you can hand over. Every man takes care of himself. If you grow up in that environment, then you have to better sit up if you want your younger ones to sit up. And that's the kind of environment that I grew up. And I saw the impact of what I did, whether wrong or right, directly in my younger ones'
Okay.
lives. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. It's nice to set the scene, for viewers who are not from Nigeria or who do not come from Africa. They may be wondering, what is the narrative around, the idea of the firstborn. But as you have journeyed across different countries in your becoming, do you think this burden of the firstborn, for example, is something that is peculiar to Nigeria, or is it universal?
Good question. Very interesting. I think the more developed a country is, the more advanced a government is, the less impactful this idea is. So, for instance, I live in the Netherlands, as you introduced at the beginning, where the government has a lot of responsibility for their young ones, for instance. So there is things like student loans and all. You just need to give birth to the child and just lay some example. And if the child is sensible enough, the child can get
Yeah,
by support from government and things like that. There is enough support in the child's life to be who he wants to be, even if the parents themselves are not able to supply such things. So
okay.
the more developed a society is, the more any child can achieve his goals. However, we can't take away the premise of a family. Beyond government support, finances, and things like that, there's something called role models, right? There are people still
Yeah,
look up to people. People still want to be, people still copy their senior ones. So there's an element of that that is still prevalent all over the world, whether the people notice it or not. But I
yeah,
say that the impact, the outcome of the rest of the children is more impactful in societies like where I was born,
yeah,
where you really have to take care of yourself, you and your family. Nobody's in the most cases, nobody's really coming to take care of you. So
yeah.
then the first one succeeds, second one succeeds, the rest of them can have support where they can also have chance to succeed. So yes,
Wow, interesting insight you just shared. Does it kind of place certain kind of burden on the first child, whether male or female?
yes, there's a burden, as I alluded to earlier. There is a burden to you as you grow up. You want you have the burden for your younger ones to catch up also and live life the way you thought was right. In my case, for
How has
instance,
this burden shape you? How did it mold who you are?
let me give you an interesting story. When I met my wife the first time and I was asking her out, we started talking. The first thing she told me, one of the first things she told me is that, oh, when she heard my age, she was like, I thought you were older because of the way you talk. Because obviously I was caring for people and she felt that you're just a young guy. You should be interested in all these kind of fun things.
Yeah,
But I was more interested in life. It's not a good, I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing. I'm just saying that's how I turned out to be because of and in my case, interestingly, my dad died quite early. So that came with its own extra complexity with having
yeah,
younger boys and then my mother having to take care of four boys. So I thought I quickly stepped into that shoes of I must
of
be
a
the one
father.
now to father the rest of them exactly. So it in a way, and then again, I'm not saying it's the best scenario for life. I'm not saying everybody
Yes,
should go through that. In a way, there is a good side of it. There is a kind of a con of it where you kind of miss a bit of your childhood, right? Where that
I see.
you but yeah, in life it helps to fix to get you focused in life and just know that you
I
have only
see.
one direction to go. Yeah,
I see.
yeah,
And talking about diaspora life, which
yeah,
is the focus of this show today.
yeah.
Uh, what inspired you to know the idea to move abroad? As I understand, you've also lived in the UK and now in the Netherlands. So, what inspired this journey?
Yes, interesting. So as I said earlier, I didn't want to even leave Nigeria in the first place. But
Yeah.
when I met my wife, she was someone who was in academia and we married shortly and she wanted to go and do her master's abroad. So she chose the UK. So 2014, we left for her master's. And then that was what made me to leave Nigeria. It's just
I
because there's a
see.
new marriage, I had to go with her to the UK for her master's degree. So that's the genesis of my whole uh, being abroad journey.
And how did the reality compare to what you imagined after you left Nigeria? I mean, for example, in the UK, how was it for you?
Yeah, in the UK it was quite tough. First of all, the culture shock, the ways we as Nigerian, there are certain things, certain
Yeah,
ambitions you have, certain
yeah.
ways you want to live your life, and then also the finances as well, because I needed to work. I needed to make sure that I put food on the table of my
Yeah.
family. So those things is having no extra support from somewhere and having to change your life starting from scratch. It's a whole lot of issues and challenges to go
Yeah.
through.
And what were some of those early diaspora glitch moments? Those unexpected shifts or challenges? Can you remember any particular challenge that really shaped
Yeah.
your very foundation of moving?
Yeah, first things first. I mean, we leave Nigeria, hot weather. We land in Scotland of all places, which is the other side of the spectrum where you talk about weather. So we land in a very cold place in September, ending of September, just approaches winter. That's the first shock. Weather was a big problem. Now, quite a bit of a personal story. My wife was supposed to have gotten a scholarship from Nigeria, from our government, our state government in Nigeria, because of her grade from my bachelor's. When we got there, the government did not pay the money. So we got there and we didn't have finance to go through. We only just came with the letter of you have been sponsored to do your
Yes.
master's, but we didn't receive the funds. So we had to figure out how to live daily in the UK without money for the scholarship. So I had to sit down and say, hey, it's not what we are doing back home where you have family, friends to give you food or
Yeah.
you're working your job. I had to figure out how to survive. Finances, the economic situation is a big shocker for diasporans. I know I'm not the only one, but diasporans
Yeah.
abroad, finance is a very, very huge issue because exchange rates, things like that are different. And you left your life back home and you're here, you want to find something in a place you hardly know anybody. So it's a
Yeah.
big shocker. Yeah.
In back home, you could walk into somebody's house to have lunch or
Yeah.
breakfast, or but I'm not sure that is the situation here.
No.
And you see, this transition you described, particularly with governments not living up to their obligations when it comes to scholarship and related issues, is something so many people silently carry. And often these experiences begin to shape how they see themselves. And would you say, for your own situation, this kind of experiences kind of shaped how you perceive your home country, Nigeria?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. You know, we love our home countries. I love Nigeria, but the things that we experience when compared to citizens of other people, other countries, is just unfortunate. So
Yeah,
you're in this mixed reaction, whether to really lash out on your country and get very disappointed, or you get very
yeah,
hopeful that something will change somewhere in the future. So yes, as you said, we many people when we got to the UK and didn't have funding from the government that promised that sent us there, we found that many people were in the same shoes. They have stayed 1, 2, 3 years trying to figure out how to live their lives. The government that promised them their funding abandoned them. No matter the letters they wrote, they abandoned them in a country, foreign country. These are supposed to be scholars who are representing your country and getting education somewhere else. But the government didn't seem to care about the scholars.
yeah,
And this
yeah,
is also just to add to that, this is also a widespread phenomenon as well. We see brain drain in medicine, brain drain in engineering, brain drain in all the most important
yeah,
areas of society that develop society. The government doesn't even care that the best doctors are leaving the country and that if doctors leave, there will be nobody else to take care of the people on the ground. Government doesn't even care that hospitals are being emptied, that engineering, manufacturing, brains are exported abroad. They
yeah.
just let things go, and it was unfortunate living through that hell because we had to start figuring out how to raise money to feed and pay the fees of a supposed scholarship education. That is
Well,
unfortunate.
yeah, this is really a very unfortunate experience.
Yeah.
Living abroad can sometimes feel like you are holding multiple identities. And I can imagine these identities become even challenging to resonate with when you also do not have some support from your country of birth. I'd like to ask, speaking about identity, how has your identity evolved since moving to the Netherlands from the
Yeah.
UK?
Yeah.
Did
Yes.
you notice
Interesting.
some shift in how things are done in the UK as compared to the Netherlands? How does this shift shape who you are?
Yes, interesting. Very good question. Very good question. I think this is something many diasporans need to pay attention to because different countries, now we're talking about moving abroad, right? So different countries have their own foundational experiences with foreigners. In the UK, for instance, yes, things were difficult, as I said. However, the UK is a country that had experience with black people because they have had longer history, and because of the whole colonization efforts, they've had
Yeah.
longer history with black people. One. Secondly, which is more important, they've had longer history with black people who are smart. So when they see, they are used to going to the hospital to see a doctor who is black. They are used to going to a firm to see a CEO who is black. So the identity on the streets is that, for the most part, I'm not saying there is no evil there, just as every other country. When they see you on the streets, they don't know who you are, so you are being treated as anybody else, right? That's the difference between the UK for me and the Netherlands. When we go to the Netherlands, first of all, there is less black people. Then the language is not even the same. So we don't speak the same language. And the black people that are in the Netherlands historically,
Yeah.
for the most part, are people who came in as refugees. So when you are seen on the streets, and which is not a bad thing, we're just saying
Yeah.
this is
Yeah. I
this
mean,
is the reality
this
of
is
ground.
really core to this
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah. So when an average Dutch person sees you on the street, that assumption comes to his mind because he is looking at all these refugee camps around these places where he thinks the government is using his own tax to pay. So
Yeah.
there's this assumption that you are here for economic reasons and you don't do anything. You've went in through the boat and the government, you are taking their money.
Yeah.
So that identity is very important because you have to prove yourself. And my experience in the Netherlands is you meet some you go around with Dutch people, you literally have to prove yourself that this is who you are. Sometimes you say, okay, I'm educated, and they're shocked that, oh, really? Then you have to start proving yourself that this is who you are before their minds take off. So I wonder how many times do you see them they see you on the bus. If there's no interaction, they paint you with that idea that you must have crossed the boat, and because of that,
Yeah.
you are a thief of the government funding. So the identity, again, to answer your question succinctly, the identity you carry in the UK, you are more of yourself once you come from an English-speaking country like Nigeria. Not just
Yeah.
because you speak English, but because black successful people are many in the UK, and the British people just they take it's just normal to them.
Yeah.
Then in the Netherlands, you're always feeling more as a foreigner, even if you have lived for a long time. Because for people who don't know you on the street, once they see your color, they assume that you are this person who is doing ABC and who wants
Yeah.
to
Yeah. Yeah.
destroy that. So you have to prove yourself. And for the most people that you don't interact with, you can't even have the chance to prove yourself. So that's the identity that I have been facing. I'm still currently facing till today.
In fact, this is really profound, coming to share these experiences. And I think for those who are watching this episode, it's something that they need to, consider carefully in how they make their choices to move diaspora wise.
Yeah.
And I also would like to share that I'm sure many persons of color living in European context would also resonate with this, sharply divided identity,
Yeah.
that a black person would have living in the UK compared to living in mainstream European countries. Do you feel like you are navigating between cultures, being a Nigerian, while also adapting to European context? I mean, what does home mean to you now? Have there been moments where you felt that you need to adapt to redefine yourself to fit into certain spaces?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing off the bat is in the Netherlands, you as a person of color, you never really feel at home. That's the first thing. People will say, yeah, it depends on what you define home as. The fact is, because the Dutch culture, again, we're not calling out the Dutch culture. We're just saying the Dutch culture is very closed. The language involved, I understand that, but the culture and the language involved is closed. So you are in this interesting phase of how far can I integrate and for how much can I keep my Africanness.
Mm,
There is a huge river that you have to cross, and you want to know whether to cross to the other side or to be in the boat in the river,
yeah,
because it's obvious that there is a Dutch culture. And for you, when you come in new as a person of color, you see you are a foreigner. Even if you speak
yeah,
the language, you are a foreigner. So you are in this phase of, when should I maintain that I'm an African? Okay, when should I pretend, or should I say no, I'm Dutch? It's the divide is very clear.
yeah,
So that navigation is continuous. There is a big part. If you learn the language, it helps. You have more interaction to the people,
Yeah.
This is not to say that people are bad people or good people. We're just talking of lived experience, right? So yeah, so the navigation is real and it's clear and it's something, as you said earlier, to take into account when relocating to countries like the Netherlands or other countries that have different languages from where you are from. Is different compared to when you are in the UK, for instance. There is more integration by default uh,
Yes.
than when you are in the Netherlands.
I mean, this is really revealing. Let's go deep into this divide. You engage with a lot of people. What identity struggles do you notice most among African immigrants? So let's say, for
Yeah,
example, second generation immigrants. So those who
yeah.
are also born and raised in the Netherlands. So who from zero age, they were already Dutch. Have there been moments where you noticed you are being profiled by your fellow persons of color because they do not consider your Dutch to be good and therefore feel okay to put you in that same bubble where white Dutch also puts black immigrants? Have you been in such contest?
Well, that's an interesting story. Not really. I think if I want to disagree with you there a little bit, I think I feel really a lot of empathy for second generation immigrants because for me, even if we talk about challenges that we face, we have a strong upbringing. We have things that have been put into us. We have resilience. We have already lived through a lot of stuff in our home countries and we have less resilience. So while we go through these things, we have a reserve of resilience that we bring forth to say, hey, I'm going to go through this. I'm going to go through the racism. I'm going to go through the discrimination. I'm going to go through this. However, the guys who are second generation, they didn't grow up with such resilience because they grew up here. Yet they're still being profiled by their color, even if they grew up knowing that this is their country.
Yeah.
And imagine a child, because I have kids growing here, they don't know any other place. They grow up knowing that this is their country. Yet when they enter this job market or they go and play, they still find out that there's something different about them.
Yeah.
For me, I can understand because I came from a place where we are all black people. I can understand when
Yeah.
you say I'm different. But for a kid like my son, who just saw life like this and is trying to be
Yes.
like, oh, let's all play together, and yet he's treated differently. I feel for them, and they don't have that resilience that we have. Where there was no electricity, and we read our books.
Yeah.
There was a armed robbery attack, and we still went to school. There were all these. They don't have that resilience, and so when those people act, sometimes I give them the benefit of doubt that yeah, I understand where you're coming from. You are in a bubble you don't know how to bust out of. They are Dutch.
Struggling identity.
They have struggling identity. That's the word. They have struggling identity. They are Dutch. They feel Dutch. They speak Dutch. They're everything. Yet they are still profiled. So I think we should have more empathy for those guys. The second generation, we need to bring them in. We need to let them know that yes, they have an identity stronger, no matter what, because they are never going to be fully European. You see, and it's something they must know. They are going to be profiled by their color. I'll give you an example. This is a private issue, but I think it's important for this matter. All my son's friends are Europeans, right? Because we are living in a white community. One day they are playing, and one of the boys just said, "Hey, you look like an overcooked potato." A boy said that to my son. He didn't even know it was racism. He was so
Yeah.
confused. Why am I looking like an overcooked potato? So he came home and we saw some days he was processing. Then we asked him questions. Then he finally told us this is what my friend said. You know what I mean? So, what does he do? If it's me, I'll take it. I would stand. I'll say, "Hey, this is racism." I'll call it out. But for him, he
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
even know he doesn't even understand what is happening. But yet, he's being
Mhm.
singled out. What does he do with the situation? So we have to start educating him about this, your color. We have to start giving him fortitude and
Yeah.
strength. Yeah. So the second generation immigrants have a struggle, and it's real. So when they come to us and they act a particular way, I think we also have to give them benefit of doubt that they have their own struggles, even though they are far more integrated than we are. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think this shift in perspective and the way you capture their multiple realities, they navigate to resonate with their identity is
Yeah.
really interesting, and I really find that very very useful. And in the midst of this shifting and becoming, many people lean on something deeper, and this is where faith, as an anchor comes into this conversation, living with purpose. So I would like to understand, for many in the diaspora, faith becomes more than belief, becomes it becomes grounding. How has your faith shaped your journey living abroad? Did your relationship with faith change after relocating?
Yes, very good question. I think this is also something that hurts a lot of immigrants as well, because those of us that grew up in places like Nigeria, where I grew up. Now, one of the things that we grew up with is faith. Most of us, we have different faiths, but most of us grew up with with faith. And some of the things, the strong attitudes, the strong resilience that I was talking earlier, many of which came from faith. Our parents prayed for us. We've had faith, we had resilience, we had hope for the future. But it is painful also to me to see that sometimes when immigrants, people like us come abroad, the first thing that is affected is their faith. And I'm like, you are giving up too much to a place you just came. And you see that many immigrants come in here, forget the faith that took them through in their home countries. They come in here and they lose that. They lose their faith, or they become very, very nonchalant about their faith. Or probably because things are different. There is no much accident. People don't die on the street. There is no sickness and disease as much as
Yeah,
so they just have a way and they lose their faith. And I'm like, no, you are losing too much and you are losing your life. Part of your identity, part of your life is your faith. So for me, thank God I was able to keep my faith. I was able to remember the things that brought me through in Nigeria. And I know that, no place is heaven, no place on earth is heaven. When you go to a
yeah,
new place, the challenges are not the same, but every place has its own unique challenges. And to whatever took you through where you are coming
yeah,
from is what is going to take you through where you are at the moment. So as I said about the finances and the school fees that was not paid and all that, where else
yeah,
will you anchor your life on rather than the faith that took you through other sets of challenges where you are coming from? So I just want to really talk about to your audience and the guys that people that come here to stick with their faith. It's quite important. That's part of you,
yeah.
and don't let the system to choke you out of their faith. Yeah.
Yeah, good response, to this. But let's interrogate this a bit. In back home, for example, in Nigeria, most people argue they are constantly involved in faith-based activities from Monday to Friday and then to Sunday, largely due to unemployment. But when you now move to an environment like this, where there's a morning shift, there's an afternoon shift, there's a night shift, and in between there are mounting bills to cover. So
Yeah.
you will need to juggle between these shifts, in order to meet up, in addition to responsibility or expectations back home. Would you still argue that shift in labor or job navigation, where as opposed to Nigeria, people need to juggle between multiple, employment responsibilities to meet up,
Yeah.
as to them giving up on the faith? How do
Yeah.
you place this divide?
Yes, so true. I mean, true that faith-based. I'm Christian, so let's work with what where I can talk
Yeah,
with, as you said. True that faith, churches, and all that they ride and pry on people's unemployment situation. But you see, when fake comes out, fake is a proof of original. So if you have a fake Gucci bag, you are holding a bag and I see it's Gucci, but it's fake. One of the major proofs to me is that there's an original Gucci somewhere that these manufacturers try to fake. So
yeah.
in my mind, fake is proof of real. So we don't use things extremes like that to judge what is real. That's one. Then you said something very interesting. You said that most of these activities that go on is because of unemployment. Yes, true, but it's not just because of unemployment. It's also because of a balanced lifestyle. It's also because the rate of people's lives are more balanced back home. People work, they come back, and they have enough time to attend to other things that matter to them. The
To
trap
compare
of
to that balance here.
to trap of places like this is sometimes you work a full-time job and you can't even pay your bills. And we are deceiving ourselves about it because the system works.
Yeah,
That's the problem. And you see, a lot of people have been in diaspora 10 years. You see, one of the things I told myself, knowing that I'm going to spend some time here, is this: whatever I could have been in Nigeria, I will not be less here. I will not lose the things, even though I know I will gain some things here that may not have gained in Nigeria. I will not lose the things that are important. Most of these things that are important are things that we cannot even calculate with money, like your family, like your life, your health, or your faith, for instance, your purpose in life. Now, these are the things that if you are not careful, places like this will rob of you just because of the daily check, because of the monthly check. So we're in a big bubble of this huge rat race. It's true. People have to work. They work full time, they can't fully pay their bills. They have to get sometimes a second job. They can't fully
Yeah.
pay their bills, and because of that, they lose touch with family. They lose touch with their faith. They can't even go to church on Sundays or go to mosque or wherever faith they belong to, because
Yeah.
they're always working, working, working. Question is that what life is made for? Just to keep working? Some of them lose their health. I heard of people in the UK now. A lot of my friends are now getting scared because a lot of immigrants are just dropping dead. Young people dropping dead because they overwork themselves. So we have to, at a point, when you have done the basic things, you've gone to your master's or your BSc, we have to start looking, hey, who am I? We have to start checking if the new countries that we are now resident in is silently stealing our identity, is silently stealing our lives from us while giving us paychecks at the end of the month. We have to start thinking if we are now slaves of the system,
Yeah.
if we are now slaves of the system helping to build their own civilization, why losing our own lives in it? So many, just to point out, many of those people who you see go to church and pray and have many meetings, yes, we can talk about the negative side, but it's also a proof that they have the time in their hands. They are living
Yeah.
more balanced life. They're living more life that they can do faith, do work. Everything is slower. You just need to take a flight from Amsterdam to Lagos, and you see that the pace people are walking. While you're in Amsterdam, everybody's running to get a train. You get to Lagos, everybody's just slow. It just calms your mind. You take a flight back from Lagos to London or Amsterdam, and you see that you need to pick up pace again. What is that? That's slavery. And maybe we'll talk about that in this discussion. That what we need to be thinking about as people that come from a system where we see people eat real food, fresh food. You know, you
Yeah.
meet with people. There's this communication, family. We have time. We go for burial ceremonies. We go for
Yeah.
birthdays. We go for weddings, and we have the time to enjoy those things. But here, you can hardly call on your friend, and you have to book a meeting for 3 months time before you even see your personal friend. So we have to check ourselves if the system is tying us down.
Yeah, I think what you have really raised are very strong existential issues that people face here. And I do recognize how this is robbing of our identity. I would like to delve deep further. As a pastor, how do you support others navigating uncertainty, loneliness, or cultural displacement? Just a follow-up of the argument you've raised. What role does faith play in helping people understand their identity and purpose?
Yes. So I got a job in the UK one time. I was looking for jobs. So I applied for one job, customer service job. And then they said, okay, you have to work, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, can I do at least one Sunday off a month? I first asked for two. They said, no, you must work on Sundays. I know other people because you have to work just 5 days. So they can give you 2 days off. But for me, they said no, 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 no. We can't give you 2 days. I said just one Sunday. At least I want to go to church once a Sunday. And the guy said no, we can't get it. We can't give you that job. So I quit. Said sorry, I can't take it. I was the right person. I was going to get in. I said sorry, I can't take it. I can't lose that much of my life. And I went back home. My wife was like, "Where's your?" And I said, "Hey, they didn't want me to. They said I must go to work on Sundays. I can't." 1 week passed, 2 weeks passed, no job, nothing. And just like I made the wrong decision. Guess what? 2 weeks after, I got another call for interview. The same customer service job for another company, which is even bigger than the former company. I got in and I said, and when I tell them that I'm a Christian, I go to church on Sunday, can I get Sunday off? The guy said, oh, yes, fine. Other people that don't care about that. And he gave me my Sundays off. Guess what? In a year, the new job had a salary £2,500 more than the previous job. Just to round off on what I was saying earlier, you must choose your life. Don't let the system choose you. And that's what I do as a pastor, especially when I come to people like me. The first thing I do is, okay, you just came in. It's true that we have to do different stuff. You are trying to pay your fees, you're trying to pay your this. Yeah, there are different phases. When you do all that, call yourself together, come back and say, who am I in person? So I help them as a pastor to look into things that they really want to be. Many of
Yeah.
people, after 10, 15 years, they look back and say that they see that they've lost their lives. They've made some money, but they've lost the essence of their lives. So that anchor.
Sorry
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
jump
yeah.
in here. Would you say in the light of this that diaspora experience challenges faith or strengthens it?
It challenges it a lot. One of the things that one of the major, if you are not careful, one of the major things that you may lose when you travel abroad is your faith. You get silly excuses like, oh, you call 911 and the police is there, so there's no armed robbery. Oh, you call emergency and my health is there. So why do I have to need God and why do I have to pray? You forget that it's not just needs, it's about who you are as a person. It's about your relationship, what you are built off as a person. So one of the things that we need to keep tight, and if we don't put a stop to it, if we don't put a guard to it, Bible says, guard your heart with all diligence. Out of it comes the issues of life. Proverbs 4:22. If you don't put a guard to it, these things are there to eat it up. Do you know when I got to the UK, an old man came. He saw that immigrants were there. This is an old minister. He came to our house that time, and he came to give us a Bible. He didn't know whether we're Christians or not. So he was
Yeah.
doing evangelism to immigrants. So he came and he gave us a Bible and he sat in my sitting room. So I asked him a question. I said, sir, when I was in Nigeria, I used to respect the UK because some of the Christian strengths we have came from there when they colonized us. But coming to the UK, I see the downfall of Christianity back then in 2014. I said, why? And the man broke down in tears in my sitting room. And he said, materialism got us out of faith. He said, we couldn't continue and give it to our next generation because all we're thinking about was materialism. So even a British man understands, an old British preacher understands that they are at a point, humanism, materialism, big government, things like this started to impact their own other generations from taking on the faith. And the churches, the older generation, have started to see that it's a bad impact on their younger ones, on the next generation. So it's something we ourselves can't lose. We have to make sure that we continue our faith as our parents have taught us. We have to continue.
Yeah.
We have to strengthen and teach our own children. This is what you belong. We can't lose it. We can't allow the system, to rob that from us.
I mean, this is when I look back at my own life with all you're saying, I can also see a reflection of how this also impacts who I am constantly becoming every day.
Yeah.
And why faith grounds us, the realities of society, especially around race, also shape our experiences.
Yeah.
To this end, I would like to take you back to the conversation on race, color, and belonging, facing the unspoken. One of the realities of living abroad that isn't always spoken about enough is how race and color influence everyday life.
Yeah.
What has been your personal experiences with race in the Netherlands?
Good
Have there
question.
been a time where in this country you were felt profiled about regarding your identity, your color, and your person, and how did you navigate that?
Yes, thank you. So I'll answer this in two ways. The first thing is, let me say the reality on ground and agree completely. There is racism in Europe. That's a given. That's true. Because in the Netherlands, it's a mostly white community. So there is racism. I have been profiled. I'm sure every other person who is black and has stayed there for long have been profiled. So there is racism in Europe. And if there's anybody trying to come to Europe, 100%. I've been here for 7 years plus. I guarantee you, if you stay here for 1 year, you will be racially profiled. That's a given. That's something that is true. So take it. Take it from me. Yes, there is racism in Europe. But then the second side. What country on earth is there not discrimination of a kind? Racism is a kind of discrimination. It's a discrimination towards you based on your race, your color. The reality on ground is that there's racism. So let's take it like that. Now, I think the most important part is do I overcome it? So these are the
How do you
questions that
navigate
how
those
do I
racial
navigate?
barriers?
Yeah. Okay. So these are the questions that I ask myself. In what country on earth is there not discrimination? I come from a country, Nigeria, where we have multiple languages, multiple ethnic groups. Sometimes to even get a job in my city, Benin City, and you are not speaking the language. We have multiple languages. For those of us people that know Nigeria, we have multiple languages. Sometimes to get a job in Benin, you have to be from Benin. We have other forms of discrimination. We have nepotism, we have favoritism, tribalism. This is not even about race. This is just about tribes. Sometimes you'll say no. In fact, even our political system is run by zoning. That means it's not about the best, it's about where the president is from. So it's more important to us to choose a man from the north after the south than for choose the best man or the best woman for the job. So why do we diasporans come here and make race a big issue? I ask myself sometimes, I said, okay, if my colleague who is white walked on my streets where I was born, what will be the outcome of his life? He's probably going to be kidnapped or something. but I work here freely. Now, again, let me put a caveat because I don't want people to become your viewers to become very sensitive. Is it a good thing? No, but is the reality of life that even our countries where we come from, we already even
Yeah.
within Africa, the other day in South Africans were killing a lot of Nigerians because of xenophobia.
Yeah.
So
True.
sometimes we have to cut these guys this slack. I was in an interview. The first job I flew in from Nigeria, came into this country, came in for an interview, and so I did well. I was doing well, doing well. They were knocking people off, and I got to the last stage. The last stage I had, it was me and a Dutch lady. She was very good. We were equally good. I didn't see any place where it was very good. So when they wanted to pick somebody, the guy picked the Dutch lady because the guy that was interviewing me was Dutch. So he picked the Dutch lady. And then after he picked the Dutch lady, he gave her the job. Very disappointing for me. Then he faced me and said, um, sorry, he started giving other excuses and lying. So I told him, hey, I understand. You don't have to lie. The reason why you didn't give me. You gave her the job because she's Dutch. That's fine. Because if I were in the position where
Yeah.
you, for instance, you, my interviewer, came and you are now you are as good as the white guy, and I'm
Yeah.
interviewing both of you, I will most likely give you the job if you are both equally competent. It's just the human sentiment. It's our weakness
Yeah.
humanly. So why it was painful for me, I understood that the reason why he probably gave her is because of the human natural instinct to draw close to the things that look like you. So that is how I've been able to navigate. So I look for areas where people will need me. I take my blackness as a strength. I take it as an addition. I take my foreign experience as an addition to the team, as an addition to your work.
Yeah.
And when I'm doing an interview, for instance, I cling on that. Hey, look, every other person here is European. I'm African. I've worked in Africa. I've worked in Britain. I have an experience. I have a global experience that you don't have. I'm different. In fact, I've gone as far as telling people that I will bring diversity to the group. So I own my blackness. I own my strength. My strength is I am not white. I'm different. I'm black. We have to own it and stop crying over it. Racism happened many years ago. There were slave trades. It had happened 300, 200 years ago. It was evil for humanity. But today we have a different experience. We have it. Nobody will come to the street now. The police will
Yeah.
arrest somebody. There are rules laid down that you can report these things. So yes, to answer your question again, there is racism. People will profile you based on your color, and it is not
Yeah.
interesting. But it's a usual human thing. Is something that we do in our countries. It's something that
Yes.
we will do ourselves. So let's take our blackness, our colorfulness as a strength and stop playing it as a weakness. That way, people will start to see the benefits. I was hired somewhere, not in my current job, somewhere just because I was black, because the person wanted to bring diversity into his group. So let's start looking at the benefits of who we are and own what we are rather than wanting to be like these people and start feeling sorry for what we are already.
I like the way you captured this, this whole race and identity issue, being a colored person in a white dominated environment.
Mm.
And I fully agree. And I also know that viewers will find this very useful. This part of the episode very useful. It's time for people to begin to understand what value their identity and their color also brings to an organization. In terms of diversity, building a more multicultural environment. In other words, you contend that diasporans, particularly persons of color, should learn to play to their strengths and look
Yes.
for organizations where their skill will be appreciated,
Yes.
rather than being playing as taking the victim mentality and approach to things.
Yes. That is
Yeah,
the only way to overcome.
yeah, it's nice to hear this. With this, I would like to ask, what conversations do you think we need to have more openly within the diaspora community?
Good question. Good question. Good question. And it's something that I've been thinking about. So, what conversations do we need to have? Again, first, we must accept the reality on ground that we are first from the countries where we are from, and then we are trying to insert ourselves into a new place. There are going to be challenges. However, we are not the only groups. I'm talking specifically now to African expats or
Yeah,
immigrants. We are not the only groups to insert ourselves into new environments. There are other groups that we can learn from. We have the Asians, we have the Chinese in that group. We have the Middle Eastern people as well coming
Yeah.
and inserting themselves into different countries. So what we need to do, number one, apart from accepting the fact that these are the challenges on ground, we must start to come together. We must start to build ownerships. Let me give you some stats. Africans are some of the highest educated immigrant groups in the world, in the global north. That is in the developed world. So we have
Yeah.
America and Canada, UK. We have some of the highest educated immigrant groups. It's Africans because we are well taught that we must go to school. However, Africans is the least group that have ownership, that have stake in the countries where we are. When an African comes, the normal trajectory, if he came through education, he also took my bachelor's or master's, he does that. The next thing is that the next 10, 15 years, he's slaving himself for a job. That is the African story. That is a good thing. But we need to learn from other immigrant groups. This so called racism and all these things and rejections will reduce when we have started taking ownership. And that comes from coming together as one. We need more
Unity in diversity.
unity. And people like you who do this kind of podcast and good work with what you are doing, we need more people
Thank
like
you.
you. We need people like you who come together and say, hey, what do we have to do now? We have accepted that we came in as adults. We are trying to insert ourselves. How can we come together? Let me give you another stat. Most of the developed companies, I mean companies that we see here in the developed world by the guys who are here, they are all, when you see somebody's name, check all the guys, Elon Musk, Facebook, and all these guys. They are all co-founders. But check an African person. What is he doing? Most of them, African shop. Good, but it's not a co-founder. Restaurant, African restaurant. Good, it's not a co-founder. Selling hair. Good, she or he is not a co-founder. Everybody does it solo. And because of that, we are not able to break forth. Look at the African restaurants. Let's take African restaurants as an example. You go to an average African restaurant, mostly small. You go to an Asian restaurant or a Chinese restaurant, you see
It's big.
a large, sometimes they do this eat all you can, large big
What,
banquet.
the walk-in restaurants.
Go to an African shop, mostly small, where they sell African food. Go to a Middle Eastern food, the same kind of food, the same food that we sell, but the one that is owned by a Middle Eastern, a Moroccan or Turkish, very large. It's almost as big as the Yombos of our time and the Abatai. You know why? Because they come together. There's no I own, you own. They come together, 5 people, pull their resources together and build a big shop. And because of the scale, they have support from the government, from the banks, etc. We have a deficiency in our own system because of the lack of trust in our countries, because of the lack of trust within our government, because of the lack of trust even with these siblings back home, where one doesn't trust the other. This one is demonic, this one is spiritual. We have come here with that mindset and we don't trust ourselves. We are not trustworthy, so we don't come together. We do it alone. We must start to own we have ownerships. Let me ask you a question. How do you think the Chinese come here? How do you think the Indians come here? Through their businesses. They get visas. Businesses can sponsor their people and they come here. How many African businesses in the Netherlands have the right to sponsor? Say you finish school now and you have finished school, you want to work in an African company, or at least African owned company. How many in Europe? How many of them have grown to the extent where they have the right to sponsor? The interview I told you, I'm not saying we should set up something for discrimination, but the interview I told you was in a Dutch
Yeah.
company where the Dutchman preferred his white colleague. How many African owned businesses do we have? We have to start thinking. And this is what I was saying when I was telling you about the things that I would have done in Nigeria, I want to do here as well. So in Nigeria, time would have come if God had helped me and I was successful. I would have started thinking about ownership in lands or houses and owning businesses and employing people. We have to start thinking about those things here as well. So those are the conversations we should start having. We have to start coming together. If I pull with all your guests that you must have interviewed, imagine we pull our strings together and say, hey, you bring your expertise, the other bring the expertise, and we come together. We create forums for ourselves. We create how to develop ourselves.
Yeah.
We have more ownership and more stake in the land. When you have more ownership and more stake in the land, you attract the government. The government starts to take you seriously. They start making policies that favor you. This is not by crying on top of the rooftop. We
Yeah.
have to start taking ownership. We have to start coming together. We have to start building ourselves together. I think we are too individualistic in Europe. Being I'm in Europe, we have many talented people slaving off. We are too individualistic. People, especially those that have now have a little bit of settlement. They're no longer in
Yeah.
school, they're working. We need to start making our visions work. Interestingly, we grow up with a lot of ambition. We can't let the system kill that ambition. An average, I would say 2 out of every 10, 5 out of every 10 African immigrant once
Yeah.
or had an ambition to either have his own hospital, have his own business, have his own this, or work as a co-founder of something. We need to start building that. We are too individualistic. You don't see us. We need to start coming together and building that. I think that's a discussion we need to have.
Yeah, I think this this sums up your summary around collaboration,
Yeah.
co-creation,
Yeah.
community building is really key. And if you're watching this podcast up to this point and you have not hit the subscribe button, this perhaps is the right time to do so. As we unwind in this conversation. I'd like to ask Eddie, as someone passionate about meaningful change, what does progress, look like to you? I mean, if someone is just beginning their diaspora journey, what would you want them to hold on to in order to, encounter and experience rapid progress?
Yes. So what does progress means to me? First things first, you had a childhood dream. You have to keep hold on to it. So if you want to go abroad or you are already here, in whatever country you find yourself, don't lose your childhood dreams. A childhood dream that you built your childhood dream based on where you were, where there was a perceived sense of freedom.
Yes.
People lose it because of a perceived sense of ceiling in their new country. They don't even know that there's something going on. They don't even have access to the news. They don't have. They are just in a country, just walking. They don't even know what the government is saying.
Yeah.
So we need to hold on to your childhood dreams. Money is good. Money is not everything. So success, of course, there's success financially. What you need to keep. There are different phases of being abroad. I understand the times when you just came in, you need to
Yeah.
work to pay your school fees. Yes. After that phase, we need to start thinking, what did I have? What kind of family did I want to build? Did I want to be a business person or a worker? Where did I want to work? What did I say I was going to be when I was young?
Yeah.
We need to start updating those. We need to hold on to the childhood dream. We need to also understand that there is a real rat race, and that rat race is stronger here abroad, right? Is stronger. Somebody said one of the benefits. So he was asking me about benefits. I told the person just to round that off. I said the benefit of being a socialist system like here in Europe is that the government has put a barrier on that people don't go very poor.
Yeah.
Unlike where we are coming from, people can really go very poor. So there are systems and government fundings and all that. You don't go very poor. However, there's also kind of a barrier on the limits you can go. So there's a barrier that you can't go very poor. There's a barrier of how high you can go, which is not in our countries. In our countries, you see people saying, God go do am. Tomorrow will be good. I'm sorry to use a Nigerian vernacular. Tomorrow will be good. They hope that tomorrow is going to be better. They have ambition. They hope that they
Yeah.
can become anything tomorrow. But they come here, they enjoy the barrier that they can't go below a certain state. They have basic food, basic health care, but they now don't recognize the barrier that has been set ahead of them. You can't go beyond. So the middle class is so wide, we need to start thinking of the upper barrier, the limit that is set above us.
Yeah.
So that is how we navigate ourselves here in Europe.
I mean, Eddie, thank you for this, for sharing your story so openly in an honest and profound way. What stands out to me from this conversation is how deeply connected everything is: our identity, faith, our experiences, and even the challenges we face. They all shape how we find our place in the world.
Yeah.
And to everyone listening, perhaps the diaspora experience is not just about leaving one place for another, as we have seen in Eddie's account. Maybe it's about becoming layer by layer, experience by experience. So, wherever you find yourself today, navigating your own journey of identity, belonging, or purpose, know that your story matters. Eddie, before we close, one final question. What does home feel like to you today? What do you think?
Yes. I mean, home felt like back home in Nigeria. The more I lived here, I start seeing that we curate our homes as we grow and develop. Why a part of home is still back home in Nigeria. Home is also what we want it to be. Home is also the family we build, the communities that we build, the life that we build. Home is more. As I grow up, I found out that it's true that home is back home, and but home is also what we have inside. Home starts from the inside. We create our homes from the inside first. Our dreams, aspirations, what we want to be is a big part of what home is. So that home we feel when we travel back is because in that place we had the freedom to think of what we wanted to be. And we had kind of like people that supported it, environment that supported it. So if we create that environment on the inside and we are able to bring that inside in where we are out, we start get to feel at home where we are. So we can feel at home in both ends. If we are able to live our dreams out here in diaspora can be home as well.
Well, viewers, no better words. I couldn't have captured this any better. Thank you for joining us on Diaspora Glitch today, Eddie.
Thank you very
And
much for having me.
thank you, viewers, for
Yes.
also joining us to this point, where we'll continue to explore what it truly means to build home across borders, cultures, and experiences. Until next time, take care and keep embracing your journey, your identity, your faith, and your color. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
You're welcome, Eddie.